All right, so bonus question and answer time. Feel free to ask a question. You can ask your question by typing it in the chat, or you can type it into the Q&A box. And I will hang around and answer any questions about tapping for yourself, tapping for other people. While I'm waiting for those to come in, I had Mariana write to me say, I'm a university trained counsellor with 14 years of facilitating sessions integrating EFT in most, if not all of them, with great results. However, because I'm not a psychologist or social worker and able to bill clients on Medicare, it's been a struggle to attract many clients. I've only 18 months ago moved to a touristy area with high unemployment and many people on welfare. But also there are others who can afford $150 for a 2-hour session. The question, how to market yourself to those who can afford. Thanks and keep up the great webinars. Okay, so there's a lot in that question, but first of all, you need to identify who your ideal clients are. So who are the people in your area who can afford your services? Who do you want to be coming to you? I am a psychologist, but I haven't been advertising my services as a psychologist for many years. And as a psychologist in this country, I'm actually allowed to not charge tax for people to do psychology services. And also, I get those rebates from Medicare and so on if I choose to work with people on mental health plans. Well, for the last 3 years, I have not been taking mental health plans, and I've only been taking people who can afford to pay my full fee because I don't want to be stuck in that system, if that makes sense, or to only work in that system. So I've been advertising myself as a leadership coach for a number of years. I've been advertising myself as a peak performance consultant for a number of years. And you'll find, for example, that people in business are not so concerned about rebates and so on. They're actually concerned about results. And there's a number of people who are looking for personal growth who are similar. What I find most often is that it's us who are concerned more about money than our clients. When we can get over that, then it's easier for them to get over that. You know, it was so hard for me initially to raise my fee. You know, I was charging something like $80 a session years ago. And within a 6-month period, we raised it 3 times up to 180. And then eventually my wife and my personal assistant just put it up to 250 without me even knowing. They just started telling everybody who came in from that point that it was 250. And now it's, you know, now it's much more than that. So I had trouble getting my head around that in the early days. I can remember that, especially if you don't have lots of clients. So, you know, in fact, when I put up my fees initially, I had plenty of clients and I actually wanted to have less clients, and then I got more clients coming in. And that's funny how that happens sometimes. There are plenty of people out there who see the value, and there are plenty of people out there who can learn to value themselves. I say to people, what's it worth to change your life? You know, most of the people who are probably refusing to pay your $150 for a 2-hour session are spending, that money each month on junk food or more. You know, some of them will spend that much every week on junk food or every fortnight. I know that there's some young people who go out and spend that much on a Saturday night, just drinking and so on. So there are people out there who can afford that. The starting point is identify your ideal clients, and then where are they and how do you make contact with them? And then you start to make those connections. Who can refer you to those clients? Who are those clients currently going to see? Where are they hanging out? Where are they in your area? Or are they in areas around your area? And how can you make contact with them? Okay, now it looks like I have another question come in. I've got one from Femke here. She says, how does tapping work? Oh, come on, Femke, you've been around for a long time. You know that nobody really fully knows the answer. What is your answer to rational scientific people? Okay, well, usually I will present tapping within a framework, and I will talk to them about some of the research in neuroscience and some of the research on body stuff, and talk about how tapping is a body technique. then I will actually provide them with information about the research on tapping. Depending on who they are, I might mention acupressure or acupuncture, but some very, very, very anal, very pedantic, very scientifically minded people are going to poo-poo acupuncture and acupressure. So I'm going to be talking about the controlled research. And, you know, since I've actually been involved in controlled research, I can talk about that. But I can also talk about levels of research. And the reality is that there is now plenty of research on tapping. It has some of the highest levels of proof available, in that there have been 4 meta-analyses. So a meta-analysis is actually a gathering together of a number of studies that meet a certain criteria, and then demonstrating that they all show that technique has an effect. And the great thing about tapping is that some people who wanted to prove that tapping didn't really have much of an effect did one of those meta-analyses, and they still had to admit that tapping had an effect. So I like to have this research on hand. I might provide people with a summary of the research before I go ahead with them. I might spend a lot of time talking with them about some things that have been proven, such as it has been demonstrated that when you start tapping, that it releases endorphins. It has been demonstrated that tapping reduces cortisol. It has been demonstrated that tapping changes brainwave patterns, and everything else is a theory. So I don't necessarily talk about energy with everybody in that way, because you can argue that the results of tapping are produced by normal physiological processes, and that the energy thing is just a theory. I personally believe in it, and I might mention that, but it's just a theory, and I might just say that it's just a theory. Anyway, generally I find that a little bit of that, and I can get people to be willing to have a go, because I will then say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and it's personal experience, you know, that's the most important thing. So Kerry is asking, is it worthwhile to ask people if they would like to do a little experiment with you? It is, but I would actually think that some people want more first before they're willing to do an experiment. So yeah, you can ask, but I want to already have done a bit of an assessment of the person that I'm with to know how much convincing do they need. Because I've used it with so many different groups now and so many different people from so many different professions, I've been able to work out how to present it differently to a lot of those groups. And I'll tell you, sometimes I am surprised that I think a person needs a lot more explanation, and they're like, hey, you know, you have to keep on going, you know, let's just try it. So yeah, I would say, can you ask people if they'd like to do a little experiment with you? You could say, give them the choice. Would you like me to explain this further, or would you like to try it? You know, give them the choice. Jan is saying, so as I understand you well, it's for you with tapping, not so much to formulate a good setup statement, rather just tap on everything what is in the moment. Yes, yes and no. First of all, we teach tapping, specific tapping, where you tap on aspects just like you do with EFT, and follow that in a mindful way, which is similar to what I think you're saying there. But we also teach people just to tap, because the tapping alone will tune and tone your energy system and help you to get into a better emotional and physiological balance. So the tapping itself will help, and then you can tap by focusing in on issues and problems. And when we tap with people, when we're working in therapy or coaching or counseling, we want to follow the energy, and we want to follow the things that have the most emotional power. And it's wonderful, of course, because the provocative approach is very good at finding the things that have the strongest emotional power. It's usually the resistance. You know, if someone wants to make a change, then they have some resistance. And if we go for that resistance, then that's where the results come. So yes, we love to work on a moment-by-moment basis with whatever comes up, and then we follow whatever comes up. And we use what's called acceptance tapping, where we accept whatever's there, and we don't try and tap it away. We just try and allow it to do whatever it does, and then follow what comes next. Okay, I think I've got a couple of other questions in the in the Q&A section here. Kerry says, I'm interested in using tapping for weight management and believe you did some work on this. Is there published research? Yes, there's a massive amount of published research on this. And if you want to find out the research on tapping, there are a couple of main places that you can go. One is on EFT. The EFT Universe website has a whole section on research, and you'll be able to find a section of research on eating and weight management. And then there's ACEP, the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology, and their website is energypsych.org. Now I'll type that in the chat. It's energypsych.org. And because energypsych.com is Fred Gallo's website, because he came up with the term energy psychology. So energypsych, energypsych.org. Go there, and they have an incredible research section organized in terms of levels of quality of studies and different areas of studies. So most of that research has been done by Peter Stapleton over in the east coast of Australia, and through Griffith University and Bond University. I have actually done a replication of her study, which we have not yet got published, but that's just another thing for me to do tapping on to get finished writing up. I've actually got my son helping me to do, because we have another study that we did on SET for motor vehicle trauma that we're still working on getting published. And yeah, we did it. Our study was a replication of their initial study on food cravings, and we actually compared SET and CBT and EFT. We had 3 different groups, and all of the groups had a significant result, and there was no significant difference between them. So that was fantastic to demonstrate, number one, that SET and EFT both get the same result, and that they get the same result as cognitive behavior therapy, which is a well-validated, standardized treatment. The great thing about it, though, was that we also interviewed people, and the people who'd done tapping, the people who'd done CBT said that they had, they still had their cravings, but they could manage them now, whereas the people who'd done tapping said they didn't have the craving at all. So that's the big difference. You know, both groups got results, but I think I'd rather be in the group who don't have the craving at all, because then you still have to contend with it, and if you're in a moment of weakness, then you can still have a problem. Okay, so this is to help others with weight management. I've used it myself, of course. Excellent. Okay, great. So if you've used it for yourself, then that is the best testament. Same thing for everybody doing tapping. The more that you actually have used tapping on yourself, then you can, you know, it's so much easier, because when you're presenting it to other people, that comes across. And I think you should be using tapping all of the time. Myra's asking, where do I find the meta-analysis and summary? There are 4 different meta-analyses that have been done. You can find information about both of them on both of those websites that I mentioned, EFTuniverse.com and energypsych.org, the ACEP website. Okay, so this is Margarita says, do you find that physical problems respond well to tapping? Yes and no. Some physical problems respond well to tapping, and others I haven't found have responded as well. I don't think you should ever deal with a physical problem without getting checked out medically. You should know what you're dealing with, and you should add tapping as a complementary treatment to whatever treatment that you're having. So with that proviso, I've seen tapping have great results. In the early days, you know, when I was trying it on everything, I had a lady who had such severe psoriasis, a skin condition, that she had quit work and she was just staying home. She was embarrassed to go out, and she would wrap herself up so no one could see. Her skin was covered with this. She was having experimental drugs and really strong drugs. And she used the tapping. She was able to get it to go away completely. And then if she ever had a flare-up, it was very small, and she was able to manage it with the lowest level of cortisol and tapping. You know, I've had people, I worked with a lady who had cancer. We didn't use the tapping to cure the cancer, And I would never say that tapping does, but we used the tapping with her while she was going through her treatment. She had, in fact, I've used it with several people with cancer. And what I found is that those people who've actually combined tapping with conventional treatment have had good results. And of course, when you're combining a number of things together, you can't say what the relative effect of any of them are. But if I were going through that, I would be adding tapping to it. I've found tapping to help on my own back problems. I've used it with a number of people with those kind of things, with chronic pain, with all of our people who had the motor vehicle trauma. They had physical pain associated with their accidents, and they got relief on their pain as well from doing the tapping. So it's really good for that. Just very quickly, if you are using tapping for pain, you don't just do it on the symptoms. You do it on your emotions and your thoughts about the symptoms, about what this means and what it might mean for you. You know, your beliefs about this, your beliefs about what might have caused this, or anything that you think might be emotionally involved. And even if you don't know what the emotional cause is, and even if there isn't an emotional cause, because not everything is caused by emotion, I don't believe that. But there's bound to be emotion connected to this, and if you're emotional about it, the emotion can get in the way of it. But even if you don't know if there is an emotional cause, you can guess at emotional cause and do some tapping on that. And if you release some emotional stress, then I believe you free up energy that can also be used by the body to be part of the healing. All right, so we're looking pretty good, folks. For those people who have asked me questions, I hope that those answers have been okay for you. Just let us know if they are, and also if you have any other questions, I'll quite happy to hang around for another few minutes. As I say, you can ask me about any aspect of tapping. Also, if you want to ask about tapping in business or having a tapping business, I'm happy to answer that. Would love to have questions about my program that's coming up, Business Breakthrough. If anyone wants to know about that, or clarify what's in that, or whether certain things will be covered. How many of you? Still a fair few of you here, so there must be some of you waiting to see what questions are going to be asked. So please ask now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Jan is saying you can choose the time of the session at the day itself, or do you have to apply for a certain time? I'm going to ask you to nominate a time. However, I will allow you to potentially sit in and watch the other group, but I need to have those people who are in that certain time will know that they have my attention. So if you nominate the best time for you, and then if you can't make it, then you can come in and sit in on the other group live. And if there's time and an opportunity, then you can ask questions in that group as well. Of course, you'll be able to send questions to me between sessions that I can answer in the group. We'll be able to do question and answers live. We'll be able to do coaching live, etc., etc. Oh, you said you already applied and didn't see that you had a choice. Yeah, it actually says that on the download forms, but I'll actually send out an email to everybody that has applied with that and just request you. It actually asks you to send us an email. I knew I should have put a special box for everybody to sign up, but I was a little bit slack when I was putting it together, I think. So no worries, Jan. If you're already in that program, that's what we'll do. Femke says, where will tapping go next? You've simplified EFT and created SET and PET and created, yep. What's next? Well, I don't actually know. I've always thought there'll be a time when we don't need to do tapping. But I actually think tapping is a great thing, you know, and there's so many other body techniques out there. So one way that things will go, and this is another thing that I've experimented with, is combining techniques with tapping. You know, as you know, Femke, I've combined tapping with TRE, which you also use, trauma release exercise. So Femke is actually using trauma release exercises and combining those with tapping. I've done that and run workshops with the top TRE guy in Australia. So I think that the place to go is with integration, with just keeping on experimenting. You know, I think we should always be looking for what we can do next. Some people are happy to just find something that works and keep on doing it and go deeper. I'm always a little bit frustrated because I know that what we have can't do everything. And I don't care who you are. I've not met anyone in the tapping world who solved all their problems, including every single tapping expert that I've learned from, and every single tapping expert that I know about in the tapping world has still got problems. And they've got problems that tapping doesn't always seem to be getting to, or tapping doesn't seem to be doing enough for, or whatever. So there's more work to do, people, and there's more work to do in learning how to apply tapping better for some of those issues, because the basic techniques of tapping, you know, the thing that makes the result for all of the different tapping approaches is the actual act of tapping. And then there's things that are not tapping that we can bring in and combine with it, you know, such as the shaking, and such as the provocative style, and such as the different ways of working, you know, like the matrix people do, the inner child work and all that kind of stuff. And all those things are great. So yeah, I think what's next is more combination approaches, more experimenting about ways to go deeper with people, and to make things, to help people with less suffering is where I want to go. I think the big area is depression. The results of tapping with severe depression are actually lukewarm for most people. You know, they're good for a few people, but for most people with severe depression, tapping is not enough. And so we need to work out how we can actually do more for those people. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface in that area. That's where I'd love to see some real breakthrough. I'd love to see the results for mood disorders be as dramatic as they are for anxiety and stuff like that, basically. But yeah, ultimately, I don't know. I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to keep on experimenting. I'm going to keep on looking for things to add in with it. I love looking at the masters of human change, you know, people like Milton Erickson and Frank Farrelly, and what they did. And I think there's continual learning to be had from integrating their incredible insights into using techniques like tapping as well. Because once you go beyond the basic mechanics, it's all about the therapeutic connection, you know, what they call the therapeutic alliance. It's all about the heart connection. Where I want to go next, actually, is more about learning how to use the heart as the healer, and learning to get out of the way of that. And you know, tapping is helping in that way. But I think we've actually got to intentionally engage with people in that way. So yeah, that's where I'm interested in going next. All right, so thank you. Margarita says thank you. That's great, Margarita. Thank you very much. I've answered Myra's question. I've answered Femke's question. All right. 3 more minutes or 5 more minutes. Time for one more question, I think. Okay. Another thank you. Anyone else? One more question. Or not. Okay. On that note, I think we will say our time is up. So thank you for hanging around. Thanks, Lucinda. Thanks, Femke. Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Kerry. Thanks, Myra. Thanks. Who else is still with us? Can't see the rest of the names here. That says Anne. Thank you, Anne. And yeah, hope to see you around, either at a workshop or in an online program or at a future webinar. And bye for now.